Okay, members, I make that 7 o'clock. So let's get cracking. Before we open the meeting, can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance with any electronic device to mute to avoid feedback, please? And that any remote participants to keep their camera and the microphones off unless using them to speak, and ideally not use the camera facility at all, as it can affect the quality of the IT connection. This meeting will be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy, and the recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you're joining using the link on the website or on a mobile or tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. So welcome to this meeting of the Housing, Health and Community Committee, including any visiting members attending remotely and members of the public. I don't think we have any members of the public. Do we have any members of the public online? No. Can I advise that the following staff are in attendance in the Council Chamber or attending remotely: Emma Wiggins, Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhoods, Head of Housing and Communities Charlotte Hudson, Community and Partnership Manager Sarah Jane Radley, Communications and Policy Manager Phil Sutcliffe, Greenspace Technical Officer Rob Lucas, Greenspaces Manager Graham Tuff, and Democratic Services Kelly McKenzie. We are all aware of the fire safety protocols now, so I won't go through those. And can we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Kieran Golding. His substitute is Councillor Ashley Shield. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Bowen.
Councillor Neil was planning to attend. He left home and has got a puncher. So he's going to try and get here. If not, he's going to try and get online. But so it may be apologies. He may be on his way. I suppose you could say he's feeling tired. Sorry.
Well, it's very early in the meeting for those jokes, Lloyd. I've not had one sip of coffee yet. I've also got written down Councillor Carrie Pollard as well, so just make note of that. Right. Item number 3 is the minutes. Can we please say if we're happy to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of October, which is minute numbers 404 to 419 as a correct record? Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Great. Matters arising. Does anyone have any matters arising? I've got a couple that I'll cover off. Does anyone have any others? No problem. So at our last meeting, there was quite a good discussion about questions to pose to the PCC. One of which was, did the PCC consider the reported evidence of reductions in the various aspects of crime were factually accurate, or whether there was an element of public perception built into that and complacency? What were the police going to do to ensure the people of Kent felt confident in reporting something to them so the residents felt safe? And could we have an update on the rollout of the neighbourhood policing policy? I tried to cover all of these questions during the meeting as they largely directly related to the agenda items, which was quite helpful. So in terms of factual accuracy on the reduction of crime, there is a report that's due pretty soon that looks to cover perceptions as well, and that will give us a good indication of whether the figures are reflected by public. Reflected in the perception of the public. The PCC did say that there was some work to be done about publicising police successes and what that looks like. As an example, they've had a massive reduction in the amount of people that don't follow through with a 999 or a 101 call, which was previously had quite a lot to be desired, but has really improved. They also said there is some work to kind of bolster communications so that people have better trust with the police locally. In terms of the rollout of the neighbourhood policing model, the Police Crime Commissioner said that there is now a named officer for each ward in Kent, but that there are officers that are named for kind of multiple wards. So it might, I know in Faversham we've got one for St Anne's and Priory and Abbey. So it's not, and they don't see it ever being one officer per ward. It is a named individual for each ward. We also spoke about inviting the MPs and councillors to the Rough Sleep account, and I just wanted to thank everybody that took the time to go to the Rough Sleep account. I think it really illustrated that the team are doing an incredible job on an ever decreasing amount of money, and they do some really valuable work to really support some of our most vulnerable residents. There was also an action to send a letter to the government about statutory services. Do we know if that has gone out?
I believe it came up on a number of committees and the leader was taking an action on that.
Fab, thank you. Great. So item number 6 is my chair's briefing. So the last few months have been quite busy for the police and crime panel because we are heading towards precept setting in February. So we've had multiple briefings and discussions on that as we look toward that. One of which was the kind of the main police and crime panel meeting just before Christmas. That meeting looked at the work of the Police Crime Commissioner on holding the Chief Constable to account. It looked at a report around crime prevention and also partnerships and funding. The Police Crime Commissioner report showed that there was a strong emphasis on prevention as a core policing priority, delivered through neighbourhood policing, early intervention, especially with children and young people, partnership working and problem solving approaches to reduce repeat crime and antisocial behaviour. He also spoke about the use of crime reduction grant and violence reduction unit to support multi-agency initiatives, community safety projects, education, victim support and targeted interventions addressing issues like violence against women, ASB and retail crime. I asked the questions about the success of the named officer thing, and that was I covered that in the Matters Arising. We all of the documents for that meeting are available on the Kent County Council website. There's some really interesting information within those reports, so it's worth looking into. If you have any questions, please just get in touch. That's not a problem. We had a private briefing with the Chief Constable himself last week ahead of the draft precept meeting at the end of February. And I also met with officers to discuss initiatives like are covered in item 11 and 12 on the agenda, alongside attending the Joint Chair and Vice Chair's meeting. I just wanted to thank Councillor Harrison, particularly for chairing the pre-meeting in my absence, and to Charlotte for the Renters' Rights Bill update last week, and to the housing team for their housing options training that we received this evening. I hope that everyone has found those sessions to be helpful for advocating for their communities. Any questions, comments? No? Okey-dokey. Item number 7 is question 2 for the PCC panel. I believe it is the CSP's turn to produce a question. Potentially. If you have any suggestions, does anyone have any suggestions about for any questions they would like to see put towards the Police Crime Commissioner, or shall we leave that with the CSP this time round? Yeah, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So as the rep on the CSP, I will bring it up at the meeting next week. I will have a chat with Councillor Nundy as well before we go in. So I think we might have a few ideas, but yeah, if you can leave it with us, we'll think of something.
Perfect, thank you. And if you could maybe have a chat with colleagues at the meeting, and then just if you could send that over fairly quickly, because I think I have to submit it at the end of next week. So if that could be with us before then, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Item 8 is the forward decision plan. Charlotte, did you want to cover that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the forward decisions plan is as is in the document pack, apart from potentially the permissive environments policy statement, which we were looking to bring forward in February. We're still waiting for some guidance from Kent County Council, which will be provided across the county. So we want to make sure our policy is aligned with that. So that's likely to be deferred potentially to the March meeting or into the new calendar year, financial year. Obviously, the February dates are the extraordinary meeting because this one had too many items on it. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any? Thanks, Charlotte. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the forward plan? No. Great. Okie Well, item number 9 is the play area review. So this report presents the findings of a borough-wide review of council-owned play areas. The review was undertaken to support the development of a new play strategy and to respond to financial pressures while still ensuring reasonable and fair access to play provision across Swale. The review assessed play areas using national standards, accessibility, catchments, inspection and safety data, and wider social indicators such as deprivation, health and population density. It concludes that while Swale is generally well provided for, there's an overlap in some locations with certain sites offering limited value or duplicating nearby provision. The proposals focus on improving the quality of key sites, reducing ongoing inspection and maintenance pressures, and increasing community involvement through parish and town councils, whilst recognising that further engagement will be needed before any wider closures are pursued in the first place. There are 5 recommendations for members to consider. 1 is to note the outcome of the play area review. 2 is to remove 2 play facilities at Elm Grove in Sittingbourne and Lionfield in Faversham. Number 3 is to offer and seek to transfer 14 play areas to town and parish councils or other suitable organisations. Number 4 is to following this to review the remaining potential removal sites and engage with ward members and communities. And number 5 is to ask officers to pursue funding options to upgrade key play areas, enabling further rationalisation if and where appropriate. Do you have anything to add to that, Rob?
Thank you very much. No, it's virtually everything I've written here, almost exactly. The one thing I would say that at the moment for this meeting, we're focusing really on points 2 and 3 around the immediate closure of the 2 sites at Elm Grove and Lionfield, and the review and taking it forward with the parish councils around the options of maybe transferring the assets.
Fantastic. We're open to the floor. Any questions, comments? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I have no problem in moving the recommendations if you wish. I think they're quite sensible. The point I'd like to raise is that an awful lot of work has gone into this, RAG ratings and all the rest of it. One of my key concerns, I know there's a financial issue, but I put that to one side. It's more about what works and what doesn't work. And certainly I can think of one play area for Littleys in my ward, our ward, because there's 2 of us here, that I would consider a safeguarding issue, i.e. it's not in full view of, it's far too secluded, which was fine back in the day when these things were put in place. But these days, it isn't used by the Littleys unless on occasions parents are with them, because they're frightened, because you can't be seen. It's very, very secluded, and things like that. I just think, well, we could knock down the Queen Bolines. Heritage monument. That was a joke, ish. But other than that, there's not much that you can do to make it less secluded. Or you could knock down everybody's hedges. And I think that when we're looking at these things, we also ought to take that sort of thing into consideration, because, well, that's been there for years. Yeah, it might well be there for years, but nobody's used it for. Nobody that high has used it. It's more this high. Remove the stuff, lay it over properly, put a couple of goalposts in on the basis they don't take their jumpers off these days and put as gold marks, which we used to. And it'd be a lot easier to manage and maintain. I don't see the point of keeping stuff just for the sake of it when actually it's not used for the purpose for which it was originally intended. And if you were looking at it now, you would never put one there. in that particular instance. I'm sure there are others right across the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Harrison. I think that's a really good point, and I was pleased that one of the recommendations looks to really engage with local members and communities, because I think they're the best people that are placed to understand exactly how it's being used and whether there's issues with it. Councillor Bowen, and then Councillor Shield, and Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to go parochial, and apologies for that for a moment. In principle, I don't have any huge issues with what's been recommended here. However, this is where I get parochial. Batteries Close in Linstead, in terms of the report, I'm struggling to understand how we got to that conclusion, because that's the only play area that I know of in Linstead. The next nearest one is in Tenham, across the A2, quite a good 15-20 minute walk, I think, probably away. So I would be not keen at all on seeing that got rid of. In terms of the report, I have less of an issue, if necessary, in potentially offering it to the parish council. However, again, in the report, it is not Tenham Parish Council. It's Linstead with Kingsdown Parish Council. So please do not get the two muddled up, because those wounds go deep between those two councils. But if they're not interested, I really do not think it would be appropriate for that, because it would just take out any play area within the entire village of Linstead. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bowen. I think again, it's helpful to understand that kind of local knowledge, but there's also lots of kind of inbuilt caveats within the report that actually the ones that are even being considered as part of a wider closure programme. There's caveated on, it needing capital investment in other areas to make sure that catchment area even includes those smaller ones. So I think at this moment we're really only looking at those two, and then those discussions broaden out a little bit more about what the options are later on. But at the moment there's quite a lot of caveats as to any more closing. Councillor Shield, and then Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. With transferring play assets, I think it's a good idea. If parish and town councils can take them off our hands, brilliant. And it keeps them open and possibly in good condition. Is there any way that town and parishes can then buy in to some of our services rather than them looking to find people to inspect them and go out and look at them every day? It's quite a big ask for a small town or parish council to have a daily, weekly, monthly, 6-monthly inspection of play equipment when they could potentially just buy in to our service.
Thanks, Councillor Shield. Rob, did you want to come back on that?
Thank you very much. We haven't agreed the parameters of which we would look to transfer assets, but that would certainly be one of the issues. Funny enough, Graham and I were talking about it literally 10 minutes before this meeting, about that being a possibility with the skill sets we have within our organisation to be able to, and managing the liabilities around that side, with us using the skill sets that we've already got to help any parish council going forward. So there's a whole gamut of things we would need to agree around that. It's around what actually constitutes the play area. Is it the open space around it, etc.? So there's lots of things, but we would obviously put together some sort of agreed format before we went to any parish council.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rob. Yes, I welcome the report and suggesting that maybe town and parish councils can take some places on. And I acknowledge what you said, it's only 2 and 3 we're focusing on. However, page 15, it says Vincent Gardens has recently been upgraded. Now, I know nothing of Vincent Gardens, but if you've got good quality equipment, is there the possibility of moving it somewhere else and reusing it as opposed to losing that money? That's number one. If later on you do remove equipment from some of these, will it just be left as open grass then? And lastly, I know of the one at Manor Grove where kids just go out, it's in the centre of the community, they toddle across the road, which is really quiet, play on the activity stuff and go home. Their parents can watch them if necessary. These might not be kids that are old enough to go to the nearest big park. So yes, the fact that you're going to be looking at engaging with ward councillors, of which I'm not for Manor Grove, I think that's really, really good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kavanagh. I think it's good that that's picked up in the report, in that it should be consideration that if it's going to close, it has got a whole bunch of new stuff. Rob, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
With the first point you made, any equipment that is very viable for reuse, of course, our contractor that we used to do repairs has storage, and we would do that. Vincent Gardens is a really good example of where the work undertaken by our consultant was a desktop exercise. That was the one that screamed out to the page at me that we've invested so much and it's so important to the community. It would be highly unlikely to be considered. And we've exampled Kemsley in here, but that would be one. The last point you made, if we were to remove, yes, we would return it to probably amenity grass or whatever the usage around it already is. Is that okay? Yeah.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be very brief. Thank you for the report, which is very concise, and I can see you've done a lot of work on it. As someone that works more on visuals, a map might have been a good idea to show me. I'll admit I don't know everywhere in the whole borough. I should do as mayor, but I don't. But it would be helpful to have a map with where they are in connection with, obviously we could be looking at facilities that might come out as a result of 106 money, but I know that's another subject completely. But a map would have been useful. Going forward, perhaps when we do get to looking at the other ones, even if you put a map in the members' room, because obviously we're going to have residents coming to us going, why are you looking at doing that? If we've got something visual in front of us that we can look it up and go, well, this and this, and that's why, because there's about 3 others that are really close. It make it a bit easier. But as I said, I've got no problem at all. I think we need to cut our cloth as we need it. So this is definitely a good idea. But as I said, perhaps a map, because I'm a bit old-fashioned. A map would have been a bit easier for me. But otherwise, thank you.
Just on the point of I think there is some reassurance that we need to do with residents, because looking at the report, it's a bit scary to look at those 14 potential ones either to be transferred and the additional ones to be closed. So I think there's some reassurance that councillors can give to their residents that actually at this moment in time that there's no further closures beyond the 2 that are on the list, and that any further closures will be with significant amounts of community consultation and with parish councils. So I think it's probably incumbent on all of us just to reassure the residents, because we know from the report that the amount of play space is not massive in Swales. So just thank you. Rob, did you have anything you wanted to come in on?
Just one point, that within the consultant's report, the links, there are maps with that information on. I'm not sure if the links have worked, so it would be a relatively easy exercise for us to provide a hard copy from that. I understand exactly what you're saying, so we can do that quite easily.
I'm not sorry, through you, Chair. I'm not saying give a hard copy to all 47 councillors, because all 47 might not be that interested. They should be, but they might not. But just to have it, we've got board space in the members' room. Let's start using it for things like that, where we can put it up. It's visual. You can go in, you can look at it. Then they've got no excuse of saying they didn't know where it was. Just a point.
Thanks, Councillor Watson. Councillor Martin, then Councillor Gould, then Councillor MacDonald.
My apologies, Chair. I'm doing some of this from memory after the laptop break, and then it looks like the public side of the website's down for agendas, so I'm having to do it from memory a bit, and the paper copy that officers have fortunately just given me. Lionfield is in Watling. To say that the proposal is to close it is a nonsense. It's already closed. It has no equipment. It is a patch of concrete in a grass patch. It is already closed. So, frankly, it's a non-decision. I will leave the talk of the items that are in the exempt paper for later, but that's where my concerns start to creep in. I'm hoping that this is as far as we have to go. I do think more broadly, when considering handovers, it has to be a case of what other use can it be if it's already been disused, and it shouldn't just be parish and town councils we look at. The housing associations run an awful lot of play areas in and around Kent, and also the management companies on some of these new estates tend to run some of the play areas. There is no harm in seeing, in some circumstances, whether that is an option as well. Some do a really good job, some management companies do a god-awful job and charge through the nose for it, but we can see who the good ones are by the quality of what they've already got.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Gould.
Thank you. I was just wondering, I think the question's actually been answered, but about how the usage of these play areas is actually being measured. Are we just going to be relying on parish councils or relying on the consultation, or is there any other objective method by which the use of these play areas is going to be looked at?
We don't actually have any mechanism to generate the amount of usage on any of our play areas. So a lot of it will be through consultation, a lot of it's through our experience of wear and tear and other such stuff. But most of the work has been done by the exercise by the consultants around taking in that information. But we don't actually have any way of accurately assessing the number of users in any particular time.
Until you threaten to remove it.
Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is that you get huge number of new properties built. I think we've got to be a lot tougher on particularly the landowners, because they got a huge enhancement of value of the land. And I think if we're short of money for these, because the new housing estates will require for the smaller children, because believe it or not, when new houses come, young couples move in, and then there's some children perhaps in 5 years' time, something like that. But as the estates get older, and we can see that by some of our council estates, that the families have moved on, and then there aren't many children. So I think we've got to be tough, and I think we've got to increase the amount of 106 money, quite frankly. I'd be very much in favour of that, because I know, well, you'll know the enhanced value of the land, particularly when developers will get their hankies out and say, oh, it's not viable and all that nonsense. But the landowners should be paying an awful lot more, because basically if it's farmland and then they pass it and then they get a certain amount of money, if they buy more agricultural land, they pay no tax. So I think we should be asking for some, much more 106 money. Sorry, I know it's not our department, but that's my idea anyway.
Yep, Graham, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Ultimately, that's where this report started, or this topic started, in the sense that it sort of starts to contribute to the play area strategy, which ultimately links with the local plan and will, on your guidance and on your recommendations, will ultimately sort of push the idea of Section 106 agreement and commitments from developers to pay for either play areas on site or off site. So ultimately, that's our direction of travel.
Good.
And of course, the existing it's within our existing play area strategy, or open spaces and play area strategy.
Thank you.
So they do contribute at the present time.
Yeah, I want a bit more though.
Thanks, Graham. Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I remember this conversation, and I think that once we have our play area strategy, I think a briefing to, I'm looking around, I know there's a few people in this room who sit on the planning committee, but there does seem to have been well, let's be fair, the planning officers come to that, a sort of divide. And, you know, when you end up with, I'm making this up, Hannah, with 3 play areas within a very short distance of each other, each costing £250,000, because the developer wanted one in their area, you know, it's got to be what we want. It's got to be what's best for in terms of our strategy. And the poor little darlings have to walk more than from me to Councillor Gould. Well, that's what exercise is called. And, you know, we end up with such a mismatch right across the borough. And having said all of that, when we did the refurbishing for some play areas across the borough, and certainly Vincent was one and New Road Sheerness was another, the equipment that had actually been in there for 45 years was in a better condition than brand new stuff that had been put in 2 years ago. Because in those days, they built them to last. These days, it's a throwaway society, and the same goes for play area equipment. So we really need to consider this. But it's very important that members have control over those 106 agreements and not be told what to do. You want to build in our borough. Here's where our strategic vision is. And no, we don't want it, you know, as far as me to Alistair, we want it actually over there, because that's our plan. So it's very important that members know what we've got, but actually know their ability to stand their ground and say it's up to us what's in that 106 agreement, because we are the planning committee. Officers provide advice, but members sitting in this chamber actually vote. And you need to make sure that what you're voting is in line with the vision that we actually come to. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm being picky again, and I'm not suggesting for a second this wouldn't be the case, but and I take what you said earlier about in terms of play areas and coming back, etc. Looking at the recommendations, and you say it's the main 2 on the Elm Grove and Lionfield, but recommendation 3 includes 14 other play areas tonight. So if we agree with this recommendation, I'm not suggesting for a second that we don't at all, but coming back to my point about Batteries Close, it's the last part in there. Should any or all of the town or parish councils decline the opportunity for transfer play areas 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 could be considered for closure based on the strategy below. I'm not saying for a second that I'm not particularly trusting it's going to come across like I sound like I am, but it's not intended. I would like to propose a slight amendment to that last line, or that last bit of the paragraph, to read: should any or all of the town or parish councils decline the opportunity for transfer of play areas 1, 2, 3, 5.
Councillor Bowen, sorry to interrupt. Could you just let us know what number you're on in the?
It's recommendation 3.
Okay, thanks.
And that very last paragraph point: should any or all of the town or parish councils decline the opportunity for transfer of play areas 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10 and 11, should not be considered for closure based on the strategy below until it has come before or back to this committee. I'm not saying they shouldn't be closed, but I want to make sure for the minutes, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, that before anything else happens with these, it comes back here for us to decide. I would like to make that proposal or amendment, please.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Vaughan. Okay, does anyone want to speak to the amendment? Shall we just go straight to the vote then, I guess? All in favour of that amendment? Have you got that, Kelly? Any against? Any abstentions? Lovely. That's unanimous. Thanks, Councillor Bowen. I think that's a helpful amendment. Councillor Martin.
Thank you for indulging me, Chair. Now I've caught back up with where I should be. I can go into the 2 points that I actually wrote down. So 2 points in honour of Councillor Henderson. The first one being, when we look at recommendation 4, I am a little concerned when it comes to the Faversham area sites that are marked for closure, in that of those 7 that would be considered for closure, 5 are in Watling Ward. 1 is immediately adjacent to Watling Ward, and the other one is within 25 yards of Watling Ward. And I do think that the children in the ward that is expanding at the fastest rate in Faversham do deserve a play area to play in. So if that does come forward, do be prepared for me to be a little bit parochial and a little bit defensive on that. There are areas that could go, but you can't take all of them. That's really not the way that it should work. And my second point was bizarrely another amendment, and it was to that third recommendation, and it should be that to engage with the relevant town or parish councils. That's fine. But then at the bottom, rather than should any or all of the town or parish councils decline the opportunity, can we add in there or other appropriate local organisation decline as well? Match it up. And also think it says the relevant twice in there.
Good pick up of a grammatical error. I'm happy to second that. Is that something that we're able to do in terms of? Yeah, I'm happy to second that from the chair. Does anyone want to speak to that amendment? I realise we've amended that one twice. Okay, great. Can I have a vote on that then, please? That's unanimous. Thank you, members. Thanks, Councillor Martin. Just to reassure you on the fact that there's a whole bunch of them in Watling, I appreciate that that's really horrible to look at on paper. The removal of all of those play areas wouldn't be compliant with the strategy, in that, you know, when we're looking at kind of catchment areas and indices of deprivation and all the things that are built into the strategy, to remove all of those from one area would make it non-compliant. So just because they're earmarked as an option for removal does not mean that they're being removed or are likely to be removed or considered for removal anytime soon. So I just want to be very clear on that. No, yeah, and I just I think that's fair, and as I said, it's really up to all of us to kind of really communicate that with residents, that we're not looking to close all of our play areas. We're looking at what the options are, but the end point is quite a way off from anything apart from the 2 that we're proposing. Councillor Gould, I'm going to take you as the last speaker. Is that okay?
Yeah, very, very quickly. I just wondered how this ties in with the local government reorganisation, and whether that is something that is sort of featured in the discussions with parish councils, on the grounds that, you know, if they take it over, that perhaps secures areas in a way that a larger, more indifferent organisation might not.
Yeah, I think it's a really important question, and as probably with everything over the next couple of years, that is going to be a big potential spanner in anything that we suggest that we might look at doing. Rob, did you want to speak? We obviously, as Rob said earlier, we haven't come up with what that transfer of assets would look like at the moment, but did you want to talk about LGR and how it might impact things? We don't really know, I guess, at the moment. Graham, did you want to say something?
Sort of, obviously, LGR's out there, isn't it? And being perfectly honest, we've already got a list of assets that parish councils have shown interest in, which includes open space and play areas within open space. So, and I guess the reality is that that's off the back of LGR and those authorities sort of coming forward thinking about the things that you've, Councillor Gould, sort of mentioned. So I think that the reality is that yes, that's out there and being considered by some of the parish and town councils, and that will possibly become more to the fore, when when and if you agree the recommendations, then our piece of work around sort of taking those forward. So that would be my answer. And yes, it's out there and it's very relevant at this time.
Thanks, Graham. Right, I have as amended, I have a proposal on the floor for the recommendations. So I have a seconder for the recommendations, please. Councillor Watson, thank you very much. And can we take a vote on those recommendations en bloc, please? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thanks, members. Great. Item number 10 is the English indices of deprivation. This report provides members with the latest national data showing how deprivation is distributed across Swale using measurements such as income, employment, health, education, crime, housing, thank you both, and living environment. The report highlights how different areas of the borough compare both internally and nationally and how deprivation levels have changed since the previous indices. Where there has been some improvement in the rank of average score, there has been a significant deterioration in the rank of average rank, suggesting that larger proportions of Swale's neighbourhoods are sliding down the national rankings, which indicates that deprivation is becoming less isolated and more pervasive across the borough, which I think is something to be really concerned about. This places Swale in the top 20% most deprived local authorities in England. And what is really important about the indices of deprivation is that this information underpins so much of our service planning and our policy development, which is absolutely the right thing. But it's also really helpful for any funding bids and partnership work that we are undertaking. I'd really encourage all members to use the information available. There is some really good granular level maps on the indices of deprivation online, and you can really kind of look into it in quite a lot of depth in your wards, and that's always helpful, I think, as ward members to be able to understand where the need might come from. There are 3 recommendations for this item. The first recommendation is that the committee notes the publication of the English Indices of Deprivation of 2025. The second recommendation is that the committee supports the adoption of the Indices of Deprivation 2025 data as the evidence base for targeted future interventions, specifically supporting the corporate plan priority of tackling deprivation and inequality, and that members support officers' use of the domain-specific data to strengthen advocacy with strategic partners, including the Kent and Medway Integrated Care Board, the ICB, the Kent County Council, KCC, and to secure needs-based resource allocation. Phil, did you want to add anything?
No, sorry, you summarised that very well there without getting into the technical, boring stuff that I got dug into. So yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Braun.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention that I'm sure some people will be concerned about the average rank stuff, but a lot of that is due to the new algorithm of adding in access to services. We have a lot of rural areas in Swale that has an effect. I'd like to focus on the positives of the fact that previously, under the old one, the most deprived part of the borough was in my ward, Sheerness, which was 42nd on the list. Now the most deprived part of the borough is still in Sheerness, but it's now 95th. That is a huge step up. We were the most deprived area in Kent. There's now, I think, 3 or 4 maybe areas in Thanet that are more deprived than that part of Sheerness, which is actually a different part of Sheerness now due to the new algorithms. It's actually the area that includes Beachfields, which at the next one, I'd expect will jump up quite a bit itself, and there'll be a different LSOA in Sheerness that will probably end up being the most deprived, and it'll just keep shuffling. But we're stepping up. It's a hugely positive thing. I do encourage everybody to look at the online tool, read the data, and really understand it for areas of their ward.
Thanks, Councillor Braun. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Bowen and then Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take your advice on this one, or your comments on it. On the recommendation 3, members support officers' use of the domain-specific data to strengthen advocacy with strategic partners, including Kent by Integrated Care Board, Kent County Council to secure needs-based resource allocation. Again, it's using the horrible word of local government review. Is it prudent, given, I presume this isn't going to happen, well, these indices aren't every year, so there's going to be some time until we get the next lot. Is it prudent to be potentially put in here potential other partners, whoever they may be, down the road to help progress this? Because at some point, it looks like KCC will disappear and something will come in its place. And we need to be working with those right from the get-go, I would suggest. But whether that's an amendment or whether I'll take your guidance on that.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, and I would imagine that, you know, once we've had some response from MHCLG about what the unitaries are going to look like, which I imagine I think we're expecting towards the end of this year, then there will definitely be a need to start collaborating on loads of things with the new unitary partners, and that will obviously be part of like a transitional discussion over that shadow year and the year after. Is that, I don't know. I think the short answer is I don't know if it's an amendment. We could probably just put including but not limited to.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think we've got including in there, not limited is kind of implied, but if you want to be more explicit, I think you could amend. But, yeah.
Did you want to propose that as an amendment, or are you happy with that as it is?
I'll see what if anyone else has any opinions on it, but I think I'm happy with that.
You're happy with that with an amendment, or yes? Does anyone else have any feelings on that? Councillor Harrison?
Well, I did have my hand up to speak, not necessarily on that. I think we could spend so much time saying, yeah, but with LGI we better change this wording, and with LGI we better change that wording. A lot of stuff that we do, we look at once a year anyway. We refresh it. Officers have it within their powers to refresh, under delegated powers, if you look at the Constitution, to refresh an awful lot of stuff. Not policies, but where names change, it's within their delegated powers to change the names. And it has always been that way. And where statute changes, they can change our policy because the statute's changed. Never mind whether we want it or not. If the statute's changed, that's the end of it. So I think we could be spending so much time on this sort of thing. We just have to, where it says including, yeah, I think it's covered.
Okay, great. Councillor Harrison, you had your hand up to speak on something else.
Yeah, and when I arrived here 42 years ago, I was given the deprivation index for my ward at the time, Sheerness West Ward, and it was like normal part of the job that you kept an eye on it and you discussed with the appropriate officers, blah 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 blah. It's always been available to other organisations, but it's always been very much, I would say the bean counters, because that's the accountants, but all the techie people deal with all that sort of stuff. And fast forward, I don't know, it was just after the pandemic, I might have mentioned this before, when I was at the thing you go to now, which usually meets at County Hall, we'll say no more than that, but partners were there. And we had to, well, it was on Teams. No, it wasn't. It was the other thing. Anyway, we had to break into these groups. And these partners was, oh, isn't this interesting, this index of deprivation? I've never heard of it before. And we're not talking junior people. We are talking very senior people in some of our partner organisations. And, well, you'll be very pleased to know I zipped my lip. Because we had been using this sort of information, as they should have been, for many, many years to direct resources, targeting the need, obviously. And they hadn't. They had been spending so much time trying to spread the jam as thin as possible so that everybody got a sniff, rather than the jam going to where the jam was actually needed to not even up with some other parts of Kent and Medway. But it was like, oh, how quaint. And now some of these bodies have actually embraced, some of our partners have embraced the LSOAs and all the rest of it. And it's like, oh yeah, thank you so much, Charlotte, because, you know, that just ticked that box, all that information you gave us. And that's what got us that bid. And that's what got us that grant. And that's what got us. And you just think, well, how much better would Swale be off if you lot out there, all our so-called partners, have been using this stuff for years like we have? So, you know, they're late to the party, but I'm very pleased to say that this is becoming, for our partners, not for us, because we was always there, much more upfront and centre than it was when I, first 20 years I was here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. I think as well, like as an organisation, Swale Borough Council uses data really effectively to advocate for residents and to get money in, and that we're lucky to have officers that are able to use that information to you know, as you can see with later items, we've got inward investment because of the work of the officers using data. Does anyone have any other points or comments? Yeah, Councillor Bond.
Just quickly on that, it's no coincidence that the Levelling Up Fund is in the most deprived SOA in Swale.
Indeed. Fabulous. Well, in which case do I have a proposer for the recommendations? We'll take them on block. Councillor Braun, seconder, please. Councillor Watson. All in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you, members. Item 11 is the Household Support Fund Round 7 and Tackling Poverty Update. So this report provides an update on delivery of the Household Support Fund Round 7 alongside wider work to tackle poverty in Swale, and the potential move to a different form of modelling, which is known as the Crisis Resilience Fund. The report explains how funding is being used to support residents facing financial hardship, including help with food, energy costs and other essentials. It also outlines partnership working with voluntary community organisations and how learning from earlier funding rounds is being used to improve targeting and access. The update places the Household Support Fund within the broader context of cost of living pressures and increased demand for support, highlighting both short-term assistance and long-term approaches to tackling poverty. There are two recommendations in the report. One is to note the contents of the report, and two is to agree the Chair's recommendation for two anti-poverty champions, one internal and one external. SJ, this is you, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. I think you've broadly covered most of the points in the report. I just to update that we have now received the guidance for the Crisis Resilience Fund. However, we are beholden to Kent County Council as to our allocation and how all of that's going to work. So I will come back at another meeting with more in-depth detail about that. And in relation to the recommendations, I've included in the report that my role as the Community and Partnerships Officer delivers broadly a lot of this work already, and the Cost of Living Partnership Group is very well represented by a number of partners from the voluntary sector, and is probably best placed for the representation for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. I'll open the floor. Any comments, questions? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I have said this since day one, which is however many rounds ago. This council, Charlotte led, the information that we get for what we give is extremely useful, extremely useful. And I know when we did start, it was other places, shall we say, it was, oh, well, look, here's some money to see what you can do with it. And the feed, I wonder if Swale is typical with the information that we gather, and presumably we have to feed up to whoever they're called these days, ministry. That's what I was going to say. Does everyone else feed the same sort of information back that we do? I would doubt very much, because we are fantastic at this and we have been since day one. The second point I wanted to raise is the way forward on this, in my view, and I raise it at whatever meeting I go to. I say there's two things that we really have a lack of, and that is resilience and role models. And the two really tie together. Now, this is resilience, and we spoke about this when this came up. Would it have been round 6 or round 5? And we spoke about resilience then, and I'm really pleased with what you've put in place. But I think going forward, that has got to be a priority, because a number of community pantries were put in place across the borough. Certainly, you know that Children and Families set them up as a way of stepping down from a reliance on food banks. I know if you've got nothing, you've got no choice. But sometimes getting out of that little comfort circle does you the power of good. But resilience and role models, you know, where the breakup of the family, where children have children and move away, there's no role model. There's nobody to teach you how to cook. There's nobody to teach you how to sew. There's nobody to say, no, that's nothing, you know. What do you say? Mama kiss it better. It was bleeding all over the floor, but Mum kissed it better. Fine, you were back out playing. They don't do that these days, do they? They're up at A&E. But it's that sort of thing. And I think as much as we can do, anything we can do to encourage that back in the community has got to be a good thing. End of lecture.
You'll be very pleased to know that my mother sent me to school with glandular fever, and I got sent home. So I've inherited my bedside manner from my mother. She wasn't to know. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So when you look at what we do out there in our community, they say it takes a village to raise a child. So you just see by what what this money is doing, and the differences it's going to make. It will change so many lives moving forward. One thing I wanted to suggest, you know me, I never suggest anything else, Jay, is when we're looking at the One Swale road shows, which are brilliant, I was just thinking whether it would be worth us in the October, November doing one at Laysdown when we've got the holiday parks that are going to have to be closing for the 3 months when their leases end before they open up again. It might be good to have one of the road shows there to give those people the advice ready for when they're going to bombard Charlotte and her team with, I've got nowhere to live, what are you going to do? It might be a good preventative way of saying, this is out there, look at what's available, rather than people being hit by a crisis in winter. So it might be worth tweak. I know you've probably already got the dates set up for this year, but it might be worth giving it a tweak. I'm just thinking, trying to save on, because let's face it, it's an extremely stressful time when you're going through that. If we can take some of that stress away, and not just from the people that are going through it, but for our staff that are going to be trying to help as many as they can, just be a way of just shutting it off at the pass, so to speak. So thank you.
Councillor Whiting has also Yeah, I'll let you. I will. I don't want to forget because Councillor Wessing emailed me and I said I would bring it up, so I'm going to, and I'll forget otherwise. But he's quite keen for one to be in Queenborough as well. So I know that you're looking into kind of where they're going to be this year, SJ. So did you want to come in?
Yes, so thank you, Councillor Harrison. Just to come back on your point around resilience, it's a real lead work stream within the new CRF. So there will be lots of opportunity for us to develop more around that area. So I think that's quite exciting. And Councillor Watson, the One Swale roadshows, we have had successes and we've had some not so great successes, so if that's a word, we have the intention of doing a bit of an evaluation. The funding ends at the end of March, so we will be looking at reviewing where they are, where they work better, where they don't work so well, what partners should be and shouldn't be there, and just all of that, and sort of going back to people accessing them and asking those questions. So, yeah, we can hopefully draw a bit of that real local level information to inform what they look like for CRF.
Yeah.
And just picking up on your point, Karen, as you were talking about that idea, obviously with other hats on and other committees, I'm also thinking that by that point, the Pride in Place programme for Laysdown or Sheppey East should be on its way in terms of discussions. A board hopefully by then will have been set up. And we obviously can't prescribe what that board might want to spend their money on. Absolutely not. However, and this will come up at discussions on that sort of funding at PNR on the 4th of February. The whole point, and we'll come on to it with the Sport England money, is in an ideal world where you have investment into an area from different pots to make the best use of that, regardless of where it's come from. And I think SJ is going to be heavily involved with Pride in Place. And I think it's our responsibility to at least communicate what options are out there so we get the best, I hate to say it, bang for our buck, but also to see where there are synergies, because that really is the point of putting people together on these boards to try to, so it may well be that they raise that as a concern and we can go, okay, then this is an opportunity. They might not, but at least we can give them the information, whoever them is, which we don't know yet. Thank you.
Thanks both. Councillor Martin, then Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for a very detailed and very good report. And it is great to see the work that we're doing. Completely agree, Councillor Watson. Show them what's out there, just as long as it's not a one-bedroom bungalow for private rent in Faversham at £1,600 a month. Thank you very much. 1750, sorry. But realistically, there are some points I wanted to pick up. So we talk in the report about fuel. We talk about, we have the fuel and water outreach. What we don't see in here is anything about working in partnership with Southern Water and South East Water to get people onto the social tariffs, which is a 50% discount on their bill if they're on benefit. That is a huge difference now. Okay, 2 years ago that would have saved maybe £100 a year. Now it's 350 a year. That's a lot of money back in people's pockets, and rightly so should be. Also around those uptake figures on the pension credit and the DLA, it's good that we got some on, but 9% is, we need to be seeing all those that are entitled to that benefit, getting that benefit. And it's really tricky. I find it myself going into people's homes, getting them and saying, look, this is an entitlement. You have to ignore the word benefit because some people will never apply for something as soon as you put the word benefit on it. And actually it's the key that unlocks the door to their social water tariff, their reduced bills on their fuel, the priority service register, etc., etc. So it is getting those partnerships in place. But that isn't me criticising. That is me saying there is a little bit more we can do. We are already doing so much more than everybody else. So well done. That's the next step.
SJ, did you want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. just to say, the automated enrolment for Southern Water is already up and running, and South East we're in the data sharing conversation at the moment. So that is happening, and we're with the benefit uptake work. I appreciate those figures don't always look great, but the impact to individual households it can be huge. So yeah, we just got to keep chipping away at that, unfortunately.
So I need to be on it. Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you. I just wanted to say something about, years of mismanagement, quite frankly, with the so-called holiday camps, people living in them full time. And of course, there is the closure period, which is now, some areas, you're only allowed 8 months. But in actual fact, some of the site owners, I know some of them went into liquidation. They're nearly all owned by firms from away or people from away, which is always quite difficult. But I think perhaps we haven't been so tough as what we ought to have been. They should have because if it's holiday accommodation, they're supposed to register their permanent address, which is somewhere else. And in fact, I think the legislation is that you're only allowed 8 weeks a year. This is for any individual. But I don't know that because I haven't sort of looked up the right law. But I think if we can tighten up, on particularly with the camp owners, I know there's a new firm now that are looking at a big site. But as I say, for holidays, they're supposed to have a registered permanent address. So we shouldn't have had any of these people, quite frankly. So they were there illegally. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add? No? Thanks, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. I want to seek some clarification on the anti-poverty champion elements. It says it'll be funded and no additional project delivery outside of it. If they're looking to do this additional item in terms of roles, and there's no additional requirements, what are they not going to do as a result of that? But for me, I'm trying to understand what it is they actually are also an anti-poverty champion is actually going to do when we say in here also, and I fully wanted to be convinced on this, when we say that we've got the community and partnerships team and the cost of living group, so we've got groups of people doing this. Surely those groups could champion this rather than one person. Why can't we have a group of people championing the issue? Say, putting it down to it's you. The fickle finger of fate falls on you this time. But we've got we've got 2 teams already. So I'm trying to balance that up and see actually what's the benefit of actually naming an individual into that. Thank you.
Did officers want to come in first, or I'm happy to discuss? So it's something that came out of a visit that I had with Stockport Council. I went to go and spend some time with them, and they have built a very kind of conscious backing to being an anti-poverty council. Did I miss you? So I don't like to miss you. So basically, what I envisage the roles being is to make, and yes, in lots of ways you're right. The work is happening already. The roles I envisage being more to do with kind of outward championing of the fact that we really do care and want to eliminate poverty. I think that there's a huge amount of work that gets done at the council that is not always out there speaking to people, because when I became chair of the committee, And I sat down with all of my amazing ideas with Esther. Esther was like, "Yeah, we're basically doing all of those already," and I was like, "Oh, fine." And I'm quite a keyed-in member of the council. Like, I've spent a lot of time on these committees, and I didn't know the depth of the work that has been being done to help people in poverty in Swale. So really, it's to kind of outwardly champion the fact that we care and want to reduce and eradicate poverty in Swale, and B, it's part of a kind of bringing together of two different forces, so the kind of internal machinations of the council and also the external groups, just so that there's that very focused desire to work together and make that a reality. So I guess it's a signal, but also it's a commitment with not an extra kind of spending, but it's kind of, yeah. I didn't explain it very well, but it's that's what it is.
I'll come back. Thank you for that. Useful. I'm still not quite convinced that we can't achieve that without actually naming someone, as opposed to we are doing this work. Let's highlight it if need be even more as a whole group. But But thank you,
Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I think if we were in a cabinet system, I could see this. I could also see, let's have a job description, because we've already got a number of champions already. I'm actually thinking we've got an armed forces champion, haven't we, at this council that we've appointed? Can't remember the last time they reported. Can't actually remember. I can actually, but can't remember who it is. And we've had a number of champions. And unless and until we say, well, we want a champion and this is what we want them to do, and this is how we want them to report back on a regular basis, then all you're doing is virtue signalling. And I think in terms of what Swale's doing, it isn't just anti-poverty. Swale, I was talking to somebody, another organisation that gets a kick in quite regularly, but they actually do some really good work in some areas, but they're not very good at selling themselves. We've never been that good at selling ourselves at Swale. Go back to the pandemic. Well, after the pandemic, Such a Body Council is opening their public toilets. Really? Swale Council never shut theirs. But we didn't shout the odds about it. We didn't have it as a news flash on the national TV, did we? But that's what some of these councils. And the difference is how much they spend on comms. And pity Phil's gone. How much they spend on comms. Some of these councils spend a fortune on comms. And somebody dropped her matchstick, and we were there with the enforcement body. Is national news because they got the people to do it. We've never been like that. We should be more proactive in terms of the messages for what we are doing. But I don't think appointing I'm presuming we're talking a councillor, appointing somebody as a champion, I don't think would quite do it. I think what would be a better idea is to have our comms vision so that everything comes into it. We've got a vision for everything else. Well, let's have a comms vision for actually selling it out there. Rather than, not just selling it out there. Each and every one of the 47 councillors should be a champion for what this council does. Instead of which, in some cases, it's a non-champion for slagging off the council. Well, we're all the council. All 47 of us are the council, and we should be singing about the fantastic work that this council does on a whole range of things. And if you want more, you've got to pay more. You can't because we're not allowed, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think I would support the idea of a champion. I think not at this stage. I think we need to be clearer about what our vision is on it, and what we would want from it. As I say, we've got champions already. I don't recall a job description, and I don't recall any feedback. I might have been getting some air when they fed back. I don't know.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. I'm getting quite used to being accused of virtue signalling in the council. So I think at some point, like if we, as you've rightly said, we do already have like a heritage champion and like an armed forces champion, and I just think if we're going to signal that we care about reducing poverty outwardly, then having someone who is on a similar level to be able to speak about poverty is helpful. I didn't envisage it being a councillor. I envisaged SJ being the anti-poverty champion. I think she leads the majority of the work. It's not about who gets the credit for it. It's about recognising her role and the role of the community organisations. Councillor Martin, then Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I think actually it's more about that position of if it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. And I think if you do have an officer champion of something like this to put out there what is being achieved, and I'll speak from an element of experience, I get far more referrals in my day job when I am able to put out there that last month we saw this many people and we saved them this amount of money. And all of a sudden people want to refer themselves into the service because it's not small amounts of money. At the moment, we're not telling people that the work we're doing is bringing you income, bringing you discounts on your bills. We're doing the hard work and then not singing and dancing and jumping up and down for joy and saying, look at what we can do for you. And that's, I think, what the role of a champion is to an extent. It's saying, this is what we do. We do it damn well. We can help you. Can you help us help them? And I think that's probably, and I think hopefully, what is meant by the role.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Kavanagh.
Listening to Councillor Harrison and Councillor Martin, I think if we're to have one, yes, I think it needs to be SJ. I've been a councillor now for almost 3 years. I've never heard anyone give a report who's an official champion as a councillor. And that to me is pointless. There's got to be a point to it. And SJ is used to selling Swell Borough Council, as she should be. But for an individual councillor to have, I don't know, a badge on their shoulder, but that's up to now. I didn't even know we had an armed forces champion. You know, I guessed about the heritage one, but you know, surely there should be some time commitment for that and to be feedback to the council, and that clearly has not happened. So yes, I acknowledge that it's important that people know that we care, but I think it's more appropriate for an officer. Sorry, SJ.
Just as a warning, I have spoken to SJ, but I'm not just like chucking her under the bus at the meeting. Councillor MacDonald and then Councillor Bowen.
I just wanted to clarify about the Armed Forces Covenant leads. So there is a member and an officer one. Their primary role is more to sort of link with people like SAFA and the Royal British Legion, and it's when sort of ex-service individuals have difficulty accessing the service. So, and we definitely get inquiries through that route. So there is work ongoing with it, but it's quite, I suppose it's specialised to a target audience rather than reporting back. And it's, I suppose it's an advocate unblocker to public services, particularly when they have different rights outside of sort of general population sometimes. So it's maybe is a little bit hidden, but hopefully the people that would access it do know it's there. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. Councillor MacDonald and then Councillor Bowen.
Yeah, I think for everyone's information, Councillor Richard Palmer is the nominated as a armed forces veteran. I wish they'd call us armed forces vintage. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Bowen.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to everyone for the comments. The recommendation says for 2 anti-poverty champions. you're only one, who we think potentially are the other. And I take Councillor Martin's point, but what is it that's being achieved? But I still, I thought I had to unmute. I still come back to the point that actually we can achieve more, I think, if we have a group or a team of people on a particular subject. As we could, I mean, you could have a team champion or champion, whatever, in terms of you could have a team objectives and feed that into there rather than put it all on the shoulders of one or two individuals. And it can be that team that then actually said what is being achieved rather as a collective, as a group, and they can all work on that and share the load rather than have. And I'm glad it's not a councillor, I must admit, but someone going rah 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 as an individual, and everyone going, "Yep, that's over to you, your turn." I'll see interested how it goes. Thank you.
So the second is in the papers. It mentions that they're an external person, so we consider it the best person to do that would be someone from the cost of living group, one of the voluntary sector people. So essentially, the group work still happens. It's just those key links for the council with those two individuals that can really push the agenda for being aggressively anti-poverty. I was going to say vehemently, but that's moved on in this council to a weird word. Does anyone have any other thought? Yeah, Councillor Gould.
So is the role almost as a sort of first contact person for these sort of things, or should that go through? You know, if you've got a problem with this sort of area, would that be the person one would go to? Because sometimes, as Councillor Kavanagh says, you can be on the council quite a while before you begin to find out about the various things that the council does, and the things that might be available to residents in the and so I think having a first contact person who doesn't have to do everything, but who knows what's going on, I think would be useful for councillors, especially those joining the council, to say, actually, if someone comes to you with a problem in this sort of area, you could point them to services, but I mean, sometimes that can be a bit specific, and some of this work sounds like it lies outside the council's own services. So to be able to have someone who can give you that breadth and depth of knowledge as a contact person, maybe you should not use champion, but contact, something like that. I think I can see a role for that sort of thing.
Yeah. So essentially, yeah, that's what. Ashley, did you want to add anything? Yeah.
I think there's a bit of a theme around the communications and the information that we're putting out around what's actually happening. So we'll take that away as an action to look at how we are communicating all of this stuff. And actually, as Councillor Gould has alluded to, around whether there's a central space or whether we use the members area to put some more information in there about some of this work, so that you've all got access to that, rather than us sort of getting bombarded with lots of emails from direct. We can make sure that there's a clear space where all of that information is shared, if that works.
That's super helpful. Thank you. Councillor Bowen, I'm going to make you the last speaker on this.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for indulging this. I'm just wondering, from what Councillor Gould just said, that to me was sounding more of a councillor liaison officer rather than a champion. I'm just wondering, because I don't want to see this go. I think it's a good idea. I'm wondering whether, can we take the two recommendations separate on this? Would it be more prudent to? Does that part need a little bit more working up to come back to a very soon meeting with maybe a bit more to the meat to the bones, unless you're veggie, to actually be able to hopefully be able to make it more of a, I'm not saying informed decision, but I think there's a fair amount of concerns in here, and maybe a bit more information. I think rather than say no or now, actually could it come back with some more information at maybe the next meeting or the meeting after? But I don't want to lose it.
I mean, if you want to propose that, Councillor Bowen, I'm happy to hear that as an amendment. I think it would be a shame to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, but then it's my suggestion, so I would say that. But I think we can commit to it and then put the meat on the bones afterwards. In principle, it sounds like there's some consensus that it would be a positive thing. But if you wanted to put an amendment in, then you can. Obviously, you're welcome to.
I'll see how other people vote if they're willing to take it. I think item 2 could be deferred pending a further information or more detailed proposal.
Was that a seconding over there, Councillor Harrison? Okay, does anyone want to speak to that amendment? Councillor Martin.
Only that I'm not sure it's needed, given that the recommendation is currently that we discuss. It doesn't say that we appoint. So we'd need another decision anyway later down the road.
The intention was there for it to be agreed this evening. So right, if people want semantics out of that, then that's fine. If you want to put an amendment in, Councillor Martin, again, happy for you to do that.
I believe, Chair, that the officers wanted to amend the original recommendations first.
I don't think the officers are allowed to constitutionally.
Well, I can't pose an amendment while one's already on the discussion. So.
No. I love the Constitution. So Councillor Bowen's amendment is on the floor. Councillor Harrison has seconded. All those in favour of deferring the item to another meeting? All those against? Do you have those numbers, Kelly? Any abstentions? That amendment has fallen. Councillor Martin, did you want to put an amendment to?
I'll propose that we agree to appoint the anti-poverty champions as the amendment, and that we appoint SJ as the internal, and we look at the external through the group as mentioned in the discussion.
Do I have a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Watson. All those in favour of that amendment. So I'm getting 6. All those against? And abstentions? Thank you very much. That passes. Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Bowen, Councillor Bowen, did you still want to take the recommendation separately? I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's much purpose point now. So no, you can do it on bulk, I think.
Yeah, everyone's happy.
No, I think probably actually do it separate.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Okay, so do I have a proposer for recommendation 1 to note the contents of the report? Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Bowen. Can we have a vote on? Well, I don't suppose we need one, but there we go. Noted. And then can we have a proposer and proposer for recommendation 2? Thank you, Councillor Martin. Rest seconded by Councillor Gould. And can we vote on that, please? As amended, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make that 6. All those against? 3, and any abstentions? 2, just 1. Thank you very much, members. That has passed. Thank you, SJ and Emma. recommend. Oh no, item number 12. Do we? It's 8:30. Do we need a comfort break? So shall we take 10 minutes and be back? The meeting will start again sharply at 20 to 9. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. I got talking about Kate Bush and then didn't start the meeting on time. So item number 12 is an update on Swell's involvement in the Sport England Place Partnership Programme after receiving the excellent news that we've been successful in becoming a place partner. This specific programme focuses on reducing physical inactivity and health inequalities by targeting specific places and communities. It brings together the council, Sport England, health partners, voluntary organisations and local groups to design activity that reflects local need. The report updates members on progress, partnership arrangements and how this work supports wider health, wellbeing and preventional priorities, particularly for residents who face the greatest barriers to becoming active. So it's great news that we have been accepted. I think it's a real opportunity for Swell, and there are 3 recommendations for this item. One that we note the update, one that we agree that the Chair of Housing, Health and Communities Committee and the Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhoods sit on the board of the Swell Place Partnership with delegated authority to contribute towards the delivery of the project, and to delegate authority to the Head of Environment and Leisure to use relevant procurement framework to appoint consultants for feasibility works for Sheerness pools. So open. Oh, apologies, Emma. Do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I think it's just important to point out that it's Active Kent and Medway that will be the host, the lead, but we have been invited to be a partner. So it's not that we're taking the lead on this. It's very much they are, in their relationship with Sport England, have been successful. But going back to the reports we had previously this evening about data and indices of deprivation and Councillor Harrison's jam, it's all very pertinent, because the reason we as in Swell, the borough, is a place partner is because of that data. And Sport England recognising not only the indices of deprivation, but as a consequence of that, that there's a correlation between the most deprived wards that are noted in the report in 2.9 and areas where people are least active. And that's obvious, isn't it? So it's good news that we have the investment, but obviously there is a reason, and that's because people are not active in those areas. The money will come in 2 phases. The report here talks about the first phase, the 378,000, and the idea for that phase is to test and trial different new interventions to try to get people more active. Now, and that is not prescriptive yet. That's the responsibility of the board to decide where that money is invested. So, for example, it might be that the board, who will be consulting and engaging with local people, will say, actually, the best opportunity for the borough is to do it in areas, or it might say, actually, it should target young people or actually older people. All of that is not yet known, and that's the responsibility of ourselves to be part of that in terms of the conversation of the board, but also feedback to this committee about how that's progressing. So really tonight is about the good news of Swell having the benefit of that money, and also the capital money for Sheerness Pool, because that's the next priority identified in our facility strategy, and the capital that comes because we're a place partner. So it's all really good, positive news. So yeah, well, I think we're keen to just get on and start doing the work. So thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Any questions, comments? Councillor Harrison.
So 378 grand, is this going to be top sliced by the people down the road? Because no, what normally happens is we get, we do the work and they employ a couple of people to manage us. That's the first point. The second point, and that wasn't jokey either, because I've been here before. The second point is, I know from the figures that at least 50% of children and adults who live on the Isle of Sheppey are overweight or obese. That is a fact. At least 50%. So, and let's see, eat less, move more. It's quite simple, isn't it? But they don't. So it's not how can we get these people more active? It's not this group or that group. It literally is the whole gamut of people on Sheppey. I'm not saying it's the same across Sittingbourne and Faversham, but you will have your own particular figures with your own particular concerns. So there's not going to be a one size fits all, but it could be the other end of the spectrum, which is, you know, lots of interventions to actually make a difference. And by the time you've got to that, lots, the money's gone, and we were just getting started. It is such an embedded problem that has been ignored for so long. And let's be fair now, GPs aren't allowed to tell people they're fat because it might upset them. They're fat, actually. They're obese in some cases. And they really need to hear it and, you know, wake up and smell the coffee. Do you want to die within the next 3 years? Because the way you're going to. Here's a couple of options for you. There's this program, that program, but only you can do it. You know, be cruel to be kind in some instances, because a lot of this touchy-feely stuff, which costs a lot of money, don't really do an awful lot. So I suppose what I'm saying is we'll chip in on this seemed to work in that area. One of the things I do shout about is, what do they call it? Enerva. The Enerva gym, that is fantastic. For people who have had issues, stroke or something, say, it really, everyone can do something, and this actually gets your confidence back. And frankly, I'd put one in every street if I could, because they're that good. But I think that sort of thing we need to encourage. But I actually think in terms of making a difference, is going to be a hell of a lot more partners than are on your partnership board, because there are so many issues out there. And in some cases, it isn't can't, it's won't. I'll leave it there. Oh, and by the just as an aside, because I remembered this when I couldn't sleep last night, I did pay out of my budget for some disabled spaces by the swimming pool where the Enerva gym was, and now the Enerva gym is being moved right down the other end. Are we going to move those disabled spaces as well? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. Emma, did you want to come in on those?
So in reverse. So I think the challenge, the thing with this new funding from Sport England is they have tried a lot of things over the years, from traditional sports activities through to God knows what, and it hasn't really worked. And they are, as a body, trying to invest money in trying new things. So we will be trialing things that I personally wouldn't even have imagined 10 years ago, because this isn't about, and I take your point, Councillor Harrison, about can't and won't. However, we're talking about people that have extremely complex needs, where the thought of trying to get active is just not their priority, because they have so many other things that are going on in their lives. And I think it's trying to see how different interventions, and this is why we are one partner, because we are not the experts. There are people out there in the community that we haven't even approached yet. So you're right, it will be a massive broad spectrum of people, groups that we wouldn't normally go to from a sports point of view, isn't it, SJ? Which is why SJ will be involved. It could be faith groups, it could be different things. So I think we have to use this seed funding to trial new approaches and challenge ourselves from a sports sector, because that's not worked in the past, which is difficult for some partners, because then they think, this is the Enerva suite is brilliant, but it's asking people to go into a facility, which we know doesn't always work. So I think for me, it's very exciting project, but we will have to see how things play out. Some of that funding is to recruit, and it's in the paper, the program manager. We don't host that because, again, we don't want we don't have the capacity to do that, but that person will be instrumental in the community, working with groups and what's called 2 community connectors. So again, going out, talking to groups, talking to people in new ways. So I think what I said before about using different investments and trialing new things, because this is very much linked to other funding that we can secure. And as I say, it brings in capital, which is a real positive for the Sheppey Pool, and that then in turn hopefully will lead on to other funding from Sport England, which I've said before, haven't I, Councillor MacDonald, in previous other meetings. So it's all positive, but this is going to be challenging. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Emma. I've got Councillor Gould, then Councillor Watson, then Councillor Bowen.
I wonder whether there was any health involvement on the board, because as Councillor Harrison's alluded to, we often do see quite a few people who are at a sort of a fork in the road type point. We're actually having something that people could get into that isn't a gym or go and run or something like that. But to enable them to actually see well, that is a possibility. I'm just wondering whether there was going to be health involvement.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, at different levels, isn't it? So obviously we've got the strategic level of the ICB and public health, but at a lower level, especially when the activities or the themes start to emerge, then again it's about going down into the local level at different sort of, it could be GP, it could be something else. So absolutely trying to build that in we couldn't do it without the health sector and the health sort of body. I say bodies, but because it's complex, but yeah, because it goes hand in hand with the health needs assessment data that we've got and all of that. So it very much is linked.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as one of the people that Councillor Harrison described, I know how difficult it is to go out there and do a bit of active sport. But I think it's interesting we've had this item come on tonight when earlier in the agenda we were talking about play strategies and playgrounds. We need to be looking at, and this is fantastic news, by the way, I think it's absolutely brilliant. But we perhaps need to be looking at the reasons why people aren't able to go out there and get involved in sport, whatever sport it is. In my previous reincarnation as a councillor in Bromley, I know that they started to introduce the outdoor gym equipment in playgrounds. You all know what I feel about table tennis. I'm a bit of a table tennis widow. My husband plays for the county. You can get outdoor table tennis tables that can be set up. We had a couple of the schools were doing it. That could be something that we could be looking at. And the other thing, of course, to remember is we have people suffering with their mental health. And I believe it's proven that if you get involved in activity, in a sporting activity especially, it helps with depression. It helps to take that pain away of depression by doing sport. So anything that we can do that would help our communities would be fantastic. I look forward to seeing what you're going to do, because I think it's going to make a huge difference to our communities out there if we get this right. Because even the smallest thing you can do can make a huge difference, not just that person who has the health issue, but to their family as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Watson. Emma, did you want to come in on that? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Chair. Echo Councillor Gould's comments, and I'll need to declare kind of an interest because I work for the Charter Society of Physiotherapy, and I agree that in terms of like the health provision, there is so much potential that people can get in terms of treatments, aid, back to fitness, back to even just walking. That doesn't necessarily need to be that they have to go and sit on a bed or a couch in a GP surgery or something like that, where there are other means to do that. And water hydrotherapy is a really, I think, powerful potential option. And I agree that there is an element of those who can't and won't. But there's also a lot of people who want to but are unable to. And they're also the people which we should be looking, hopefully this fund will be able to help address. But it's thinking about what other options can we potentially look to. We're not going to solve it on this. With like, you can put billions of pounds into things like this. It's not going to deal with it. But no pun intended, it's a drop in the ocean. But that drop could actually help some people get back to being active, and that will help them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bowen. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, I really do like seeing something that stems back to everything that this council's been doing since 2019, with Councillor Harrison and yourself back in the old cabinet days as housing, as health and whatnot, health and well-being. It's a holistic approach, which is something we've been calling for since then and probably before as individuals as well, which is great. It shows that our pretty small investment in active Kent and Medway is going to pay off, which is, again, very welcome to see that it's unlocking the door to that other funding stream further down the road. Councillor Burr mentioned hydrotherapy pools. I think I'm right in saying that we have more hydrotherapy pools in Swale for horses and dogs than we do for people. So it does go to show that where the money currently is. So hopefully it comes up with some really sensible suggestions, fully endorse the proposals that are on there, and I'm sure that the two of you will keep the board thinking about Swale in its broadest possible terms, and making sure that they are fully committed to putting their money where their mouth is here, where we've already done the work on the indices, and not elsewhere where they ride on our coattails.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Do I have any other comments, questions? In which case, I'm happy to propose. Is everyone happy with them being on block? One is only a noting recommendation. I'm happy to propose from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Watson was there first. All those in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, members, and thank you, Emma, for the work that you've done on that. Agenda item 13 is the Swale Community Safety Partnership priority setting. So this looks at the annual strategic assessment process of the Swale Community Safety Partnership, which this committee has a scrutiny function for, and also looks at the priorities, a discussion into the priorities for the CSP moving forward. So this is really a feedback discussion and a bit of scrutiny on the community safety partnerships. Charlotte, did you want to come in?
I think you've covered the majority of it. I think all it is just to say is we do have the meeting, as Councillor Watson mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, next Friday, where the partnership will be setting the priorities for the year. So it's just really keen to get any input from this committee of areas to focus or anything really to feed back to the Community Safety Partnership to consider as part of that process. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Harrison and then Councillor
Shield. Thank you, Chair. I would like to see a lot more number of domestic abuse incidents across the Borough of Swale. Current rolling year 4683 plus 48 incidents. I would like to see lots and lots and lots more on that number. Not because I want to see lots more domestic abuse incidents, but because I want to see them reported. We all know that the number of things that are reported, and this goes back to the rape. I remember when we used to have the Chief Con over here. If you get a lot more rapes reported, it's not because there's a lot more people being raped. It's because people are actually starting to feel confident in actually reporting these things. Domestic abuse has been hidden for so long. It is going to take generations to actually get this to where I would like it to be, and I'm sure where you would like it to be. So certainly in terms of priorities, I think violence against women and girls, sorry, I'm adding it all together, ain't going to be sorted anytime soon. It's not, oh yeah, well, we've done that one, that was last year, let's move on. I think in order to make a difference, we need to keep on and on and on and on and on at it. And as I say, if we get a blip where the figures suddenly shoot through the air, great, because that means that people are confident in the powers that be, the organisations, in reporting and actually getting the support in going forward, because we haven't had that for so long. It's mainly reliant on the charity sector, I agree, but the police have had a hell of a lot to do with the lack of reporting in the past. You know, they are up in their game. They need to up it even further, in my view. This is going to be a long term thing. So I see DA and VAWG as continuing to be our priority for some time to come. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. I think in previous CSP meetings as well, we've discussed about the kind of rise of online misogyny and how that's quite pervasive. And I know that schools have picked up, increased levels of sexism that young women are facing in schools. So I completely agree that it's a continuing priority, and I'm sure the CSP will be on board with that as well. Councillor Shield.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just an area, if possible, to look at. I've been working with Chelsea and Sean down at the control room with my PC and my KCC warden for Neats Court. To be fair, it was our fault because we should have pushed it during the planning stage. They don't have any CCTV coverage whatsoever, and it is such a large retail development, and the issues we are getting over there are absolutely horrendous. And the landowners are not moving to pay for the CCTV. They're happy for us to install it and pay for it, but they're not happy to pay for it for themselves. But it is causing an awful lot of problems. It takes up an awful lot of my time and our PC's time.
Thanks, Councillor. Have you got a note of that? Thank you. Any more? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think everyone in this committee knows that DA is going to be one of my focuses anyway. VAWG, yeah, that's going to be up there. We are looking at, as you can see from the report, we're also working with Southern Housing around ASP as well. There's been some really great work done with the street marshals, and we hope that will continue. Something that I brought up at the last meeting was the increase in community tensions, which I think we all know what they are. And I would like to see that looked at as well, to make sure that our communities are supported around that, because it seems to be increasing. We only need to look at what happened here to realise it's increasing. So I think that might have to be looked at seriously, because when I brought it up before, I was told that wasn't really an issue. Well, it might not have been an issue then, it certainly is now. I will talk to Councillor Shield about the thing with Neats Court. I don't mind taking that to the panel anyway. If anyone does have anything else you think that we should be looking at, please don't hesitate to let myself and Councillor Nundy know, so we can take it to this group, who are very good. They will listen to what we have to say, and they are very active around things that are going on. I've never been on that committee before, that board before, that panel before, and the work that's been, you don't know what's going on in the background. It's a real eye-opener. So, but yeah, I can assure you, Councillor Harrison, we will be looking at violence against women and girls and DA. So, thank you.
Thank you. And just, I guess, just to reassure on community attention, if you were to go to 4.2 of the supporting vulnerable people priority, there has been prevent training, which has been organised specifically for Swell Partners, and I know we've had prevent training as well. But there's also work looking into specific actions that can be taken in terms of inputs that the Community Safety Partnership can do and the partners. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Only to say, I think the 4 priorities remain the 4 priorities. Going forward, there have been increases in most areas in terms of reported incidents, which, as has been alluded to, as much as we'd rather the incidents weren't happening, it's far better that they are reported. I actually think there's still a lot of underreporting, not just on the DA side and the violence against women and girls side, but also on the ASB side. So it's crucial that we get that message out that if you don't report it, it didn't happen, frankly. And if it didn't happen in the statistics, you don't get the policing to deal with it the next time it happens. They will be in some police station in Chatham or Strood or Dartford or somewhere else where it's actually being reported, rather than Sittingbourne or Sheppey or Faversham. So certainly that needs to be in there, and I think within that area of supporting vulnerable groups and vulnerable people, community tensions needs to be quite high up that list now in terms of the priorities within that priority area. It is getting ever more divisive out there, and that makes any form of community safety and community policing more difficult. But I am proud of the work that the CSP does and continues to do, and the fact that we work in such close ways with our partners on these areas.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor MacDonald.
Yes, I'd emphasise again about the fact that, having heard about Neats Court, that the developers and the landowners haven't contributed sufficient money. Again, that was agricultural land, and now they've made a huge enhancement. Anyway, that's on that side. But the other thing is the probation service are actually pretty busy. That's one of the problems. But I personally, using another hat, I do use community payback quite a bit, and I there's got to be a consequence. And I find that, I'm not looking through rose-tinted specs, but I know some people actually who've never done anything actually then come and tell me that they're really enjoying it. And if we're teaching them skills at the same time they're doing something, I think that's, I really do believe in community payback, quite frankly. I think it's an excellent service. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor MacDonald. And one of the things, just on that theme really, one of the things that the Police Crime Commissioner fed back about is the success of the Prisoners for Homes scheme in reducing reoffending, and also, giving people a new start at life, giving them skills to be able to move on. And it's been a really successful project within Kent. So, that's been really positive. Do I have anyone else? I don't have anyone else currently on the list. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. It's what Councillor Shields said. There is a specific issue there that needs dealing with, but the general issue, let's put a marker down, and maybe the CSP can take a hook on in terms of future consultation, because so often we consult the police, the gardener, the cook, the cleaner, the baker, the undertaker, and all the rest of it, candlestick maker, and we get no comment back. Well, it wouldn't be beyond the wit to have a general blueprint that you could tweak to suit local needs. That right, we've got this new retail park. Have you got any comment? Well, here's the blueprint that we do for general, which says the first thing you need is a CCTV, the second thing you need is this, the third thing you do is that, and then there might be specifics for your local need, but at least you've got those basics there, rather than it be left to the planning committee, or B, the planning officers to think, oh yeah, we need to ask for that, oh yeah, we need to do that. if the police, and let's be fair, if you do, they'll say that we've got no money. But if the police are saying this is the basic that you need for that sort of thing, then it gives you power to your elbow to actually put it in your 106 at the planning committee, I would have thought. But it's not for the planning committee to do a police or community safety blueprint, is it? It's something they could do for the whole of Kinner Medway. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on that point from Councillor Harrison. So the police do have a blueprint, the designing out crime blueprint that they comment on every planning application, and it says basically the developer should consider the designing out crime principles. That's it. That is the comment that you get on every single planning application, regardless of what it is. So yes, having a little bit more to our elbow, whether that comes from Kent Police themselves or through the CSP, saying, particularly when it's retail, with large car parks, that it should include. This is within the designing out crime principles. Having CCTV, I'm sure, is in there for retail. We should be saying that it has to include. And maybe that's a bit of cross-cutting with our lovely planning officers who work very, very hard and do an awful lot of work. And there's far too many agency because we can't recruit enough of them. But, they can't do everything. Sometimes a little reminder helps.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Charlotte.
Yeah, just to come in, obviously, as Councillor Martin said, that there is the police designing out crime thing. We used to have 2 local officers that did that work based within the community safety unit. So I'm really surprised that it isn't in the Neats Court one, because we had dedicated officers to do more than one line, as then. But sometimes it is advisory rather than them doing it, or things change over a period of time. So I think, we can take away and look at that, but clearly we do need to look at how, if the police have reduced their resource on that. And again, I know we said earlier that the Community Safety Partnership are posing the question to the PCC, but this might be a good area to talk about sort of future-proofing planning. In the previous training that we did on housing, we had a new development cited, which is creating a lot of crime as well. So there does seem to be some design issues in terms of not preventing some of these issues. So we can certainly look at that and how we take that forward as a partnership.
Thank you. I think probably something else which is worth just noting is that with all of these priorities, funding risk is mentioned as an issue. Basically every meeting I go to with the police crime commissioner or the constable, there is some discussion about funding risk, and that obviously applies to our to us as an organisation and also to our partners. So I think it's just something we need to keep an eye on, because we know that funding in the right place can work wonders, but it also, when it's not in the right place, causes real issues. Any more comments, questions? Yeah, Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, I just got a quick one actually. I was thinking about business rates with regard to getting even a smaller bit off the business rates to do things like something a bit safer in these big centres, like Neats Court.
So there is something called the bid process but we have looked at that in the past, where you obviously take an element of business or enhance business rates and then invest it in towns. It's never really got enough traction here to be able to sort of move those things forward. So I'm not sure of any other mechanisms that we could do, but that is sort of the typical mechanism to do that. I know, obviously, Sean, as the CCTV manager, will find any way possible of funding things. He's very creative. So if there is mechanisms there, and like I said, you are already working with the control room to look at sort of those funding opportunities. It is a bit frustrating when it is a privately owned site that obviously generates quite a lot of large rental revenues as well. So, and supporting the businesses that own it. So I think it's like an area-based problem that we just need to look at how we tackle that and fund that type of problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, comments? Okie dokie. I don't remember whether there's recommendations. We've just kind of done it, haven't we? So yeah, the recommendation is that the Housing, Health and Communities Committee provide feedback. So that is something that we've done. Hooray for us. Okay. Agenda point 14 is exclusion of the press and public. If members wish to discuss the exempt appendix, it will be necessary to exclude the press and the public. Do members wish to pass a resolution set out below in respect of following items? That under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As we've finished the item, and certainly the blue papers have been whooshed away, I think it'd be appropriate when that stuff comes back that we include that appendix again. But I think we've been and gone and done.
I'm more than happy with that as a suggestion. Do we have a seconder for that proposal, Councillor Shield? All in favour of that? Thank you very much. Which case I will close the meeting. Thanks everybody. It is 9:16.